It's now 7:24. I'm going to call the meeting of the September meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals to order. We're starting late because of technical difficulties, so I'm going to ask at this time that Mr. David, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Subramanian.
Present.
Commissioner Meshkisa has indicated he would be absent from this evening. Commissioner Marion Davis-Burrow.
Here.
Commissioner Walsh.
Here.
Commissioner Geske.
Here.
Commissioner Grady Benson.
Here.
Commissioner Cloud.
Here.
Commissioner Callahan.
Here.
And Chairman John.
Here. All right, for the first order of business, I would ask the secretary to read the notice for the public hearing, please.
Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a hybrid, in-person, and online public hearing on Monday, September 16th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Council Chambers on the following application. James Yao, trustee of JWY Ohana Living Trust application for variance to locate a ground-mounted solar array and other than required yard for single-family residence located at 115 Town Farm Road, R40 zone. Interested parties are encouraged to participate in the hybrid public hearing. To link to this meeting may be found on the Town of Farmington's website, and a copy of this proposal is available online or by calling the Planning Department at Farmington Town Hall, 860-675-2325. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, August 28, 2024. Farmington Zoning Board of Appeals, John Schoenhorn, Chairman.
All right, so before we begin, I'm just going to explain the procedure. We only have the one public hearing tonight, but I would have the applicant or whoever is representing the applicant speak first. They're going to either come to the table or at the podium. I assume the podium.
Yes, the podium
works. It does. Okay. You would. I would ask that you state your name and address for the record and what your role is. And at that point, you can make your presentation. When you have concluded your presentation, the commissioners will all be invited to ask questions. And after that, we will open the matter up to the public, either for or against. I usually go, people who want to speak in favor and those who want to speak opposed thereafter. And I will also give the applicant the right to respond to anything that is brought up during the course of the hearing. All right, so whoever's going to speak on behalf of that's going to be you, sir. All right, if you would please come up to the podium. And again, because of the technical difficulties we've had, would you please speak right into the microphone, identify yourself and your address for the record, please.
My name is James Yao, trustee of the JWY Ohana Living Trust, owner of 115 Town Farm Road. As background, I'm looking to become less reliant on the electrical grid and Eversource, and not just because of cost. We've all seen our bills go up and down. For me, I'm actually having troubles with my service. I have the old 3-wire service line coming in, and much of the insulation is frayed and gone. I actually have brownouts and flickering lights. And since 2019, I've had 2 shorting incidences that have fried my surge protectors and some appliances. So I would like to reduce that dependence as much as possible. Supposedly there are 3 work orders in since 2019 to replace that old wire that's been there since at least the 50s. But I still have the old wire. It hasn't been changed. So I researched possibly going to alternative sources of energy. Solar seems like a plausible alternative and or supplement to my energy needs. but I need a variance, a yard variance, from the requirement, I guess, rear half of the property and I need to locate it more in the front and more on that after. The reason the rear half of the location is difficult is because my house has an east-west orientation, not ideal for solar. I also have a septic system in the backyard, and I have a geothermal well to be located in the front yard. And more importantly, I have very dense, tall trees surrounding me, and especially to the southern side. These trees have been there since at least the 50s, again, very tall, and they do block solar access and make it very difficult. Even when, if I were to remove 3/4 of an acre of trees, it still doesn't get me to the production that I would need as assessed by Earthlight. And Earthlight has come up with an energy production of roughly 7 kilowatt hours at best, and my needs have been determined to be 27 kilowatt hours. So basically, I'm looking to, from Earthlight's recommendation, locate a solar array in the front half of the property because the rear half is just not a viable option for me. And in the front half, actually, the optimal location that Earthlight came up with is much closer to the street. And I've changed that and moved it farther back, more towards the halfway line, not getting there, but more towards it, without reducing my energy production too much. It's also served to remove the array further away from the homes on 117 and 113. And it also brings the array further back from many of the houses on the street that are up front. And the proposed location has an estimated production of roughly 15 to 17 kilowatt hours, which would be acceptable to Eversource. Eversource relies on your actual usage plus an adjustment for electric vehicles to determine the size of the array. And what we're expecting is that after, it doesn't work for me because I'm putting in a geothermal unit to replace my heating and cooling, which isn't reflected in my actual usage. I'm replacing my hot water heater, which is running on oil as well and not reflected in my actual electrical usage. So the expectation is that over the course of a year, with the geothermal and hybrid hot water heater system, I should be able to justify and implement the remaining 15. So the bottom line is locating the array in the rear half of the property creates a hardship for me, and it can be solved by locating it in the front half of the property. And the project itself will be done in 2 phases to meet the constraints imposed by Eversource. That's my summary.
And then before we turn it over to the commissioner, I just want to clarify, we cannot consider the fact that there's an energy savings as the reason. We have had a number of ground-mounted solar arrays, and I said on the record before, I have it on my roof, solar panel, so I'm a big fan, but we can only, what you're asking us to do is to basically vary or alter the zoning regulations for you, which goes with the land, not just for you. It stays there permanently. If you sell the property tomorrow, it's a permanent variance to the regulations. So could you articulate, other than you're planning on putting in geothermal, which I assume is going to be closer to your house? Would you
It's in, the wells would be in the front yard.
But just explain why this is the location where the array needs to go. Maybe just clarify that.
Okay. Again, I can't put it in the backyard because I have a septic system there. There's only a limited space. Can't put it in the front yard because of the geothermal wells. And
The geothermal wells aren't in yet though, correct?
they started today.
Oh, they're already being put in.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I have very tall trees that have been there for a long time that block solar access. And my house has an east-west orientation, not ideal for solar. So I'm kind of hamstrung in a bit in the rear half of the property. Unless I want to, even if I remove 3/4 of an acre of trees on the side property that I own, these are very narrow and long lots. And I only have 100 feet till I hit my neighbor's trees. So removing the trees doesn't solve my problem. I'm still faced with blockage for solar access. And as I said, the optimal solar location when Earthlight proposed the array location is much closer to the street. You have pictures, you could see the field is wide open for the most part. You put it in the center there, it'll have more of the sun hitting the array. I've chosen to try and move it away from the street as much as possible and put it as close to the rear half and the trees. You can still see there are trees there, but I've lost some production, but I'm still able to at least meet my needs with the panels that I'm proposing to put in. So basically, it's not just the cost savings, it is doing my part, and I can't put it in the rear half. It's not a viable option. And if I didn't say the Earthlight, they came up with an estimate of less than 7 kilowatt hours of production in the best location in the rear half of the property. And my needs are 27 kilowatt hours. So I'm trying to, put it in the rear half, somewhat restricted, and I'm trying to be cognizant of not just throw it out there, in the middle of the field, closer to the street, closer to the neighbors, closer to, most of the homes are kind of by the front, and this moves it further back. And if there are concerns, about it, I can add perhaps more trees to a certain extent. Obviously, I can't put up trees right next to it and block the solar because that would defeat the purpose. But I could put more trees on, the borders or in the front if deemed necessary. But you have pictures from the street. I do have, trees along the way as well that blocks the view of most people. Most people are driving through there. The street has certainly become more busy than before. And they're not most likely going to see an array, just kind of sitting up there. There's a lot of cover there.
Thank you. I'm going to see, because to make sure that everybody can get their say, I'm going to start with the remote commissioner. So Commissioner Callahan, do you have any questions? Carrie, can you hear us?
I'm sorry if the last remark was directed at me. Could you repeat it, please?
Yes. Do you have any questions of the applicant?
I do not at this point. Thank you.
And then I'm going to jump to Commissioner Subramani. Do you have any questions?
I do not at the moment. Thank you.
Commissioner Klass?
It is what it is.
My question is, what is your goal in terms of having this solar? From your solar,
27 kilowatt hours.
does that make you energy independent? Or what's the goal? To get to 100%, 50%?
Or, yeah, close to it, as much as possible. Again, for, so 5 years, I still haven't got my service line changed. And just, it would be nice to be dependent on Eversource and a reliable company, but, after having a couple shorts and being partially reimbursed, I've lost appliances, I've lost circuit protectors, but that's serving the purpose.
No,
I'm trying to get, I'm figuring I have a need, because when I put in geothermal, the estimate is it's going to take about 10 kilowatt hours of energy. And hybrid hot water heaters is made to take about 2 to 3 kilowatt hours. And my current consumption is around 9 to 10. The Eversource allows an electric vehicle allowance, and that gets me to little more than 27, gets me to around 28 and a half or whatever. But I want to get, it was estimated 27 to get the 50 panels, because they wanted to make it nice and square, versus going to 51. Then how do you divide it, 3 by 70? We're just trying to keep it neat, and we settled on 27 as the ultimate need. And right now, I'm just trying to do what is acceptable to Eversource for the net metering perspective.
And has anyone else looked at this other than this group, or have you had any other?
Yes. Premier's looked at it. They were kind of a bidder in there and so forth, and same conclusions. They, it's, if you look at the pictures, I think you could tell there is significant blockage to the solar access in the rear half. And they have concluded and recommended it go in the front. And I chose Earthlight because it's actually a Connecticut company that has done commercial work and residential work, has a good reputation. They've done ground mounts and roof solar arrays. I'm not looking to lease. You hear enough horror stories about leasing. It's just going to be owned outright. So actually, having a solar array there increases the property value, because if I were to sell it, of which there is no plan, I've lived there since I was a kid, actually, in the smaller house before I changed it. And you know, who knows what's gonna happen? The infrastructure is aging for the electric grid. What if we get World War III? Who knows? Those are things that could happen, but I'm just trying to cover my electrical needs, go more green, get rid of oil. And, you know, I've got, as I said, an oil furnace and I have an oil hot water heater, getting the oil in there and then worried about carbon monoxide, poisoning and everything else. This just eliminates it. Putting in the geothermal is just a clean route for heating and cooling.
And my last question, I guess, is thank you for that response. I appreciate it. I'm trying to see from this photograph, the house that is southern on this picture that we're looking at, and the array, the planned array, is there, that looks like a road. There's no fence, there's no.
That's the driveway. There is a fence there.
But is there a driveway, I mean, a fence as well?
Hold on 1 second.
There's a 6-foot fence there and arborvitae's in the backyard. And so over here,
That's what I'm trying to see.
so there is a
You have to stand by the microphone or nobody will hear you.
I've got it on the monitor, James.
sorry.
I've got the mouse highlighting on the monitor.
Thanks, Garrett. There's a 6-foot fence there, and then blocking the backyard, he does have arborvitae's, and he has said he's in support of my project.
Thank you for your response, appreciate it. Also,
Commissioner Jensky.
I don't have any questions right now. I guess just going back to the question of hardship, it would be relating to you can't put it in the back because of the septic, and then you can't,
Not just the septic.
well, geothermal, I mean, is that what we're gonna
I can't put it in the backyard because of septic. I can't put it in the front yard because of the geothermal. And I'm having east-west
Right.
house orientation, and I have large trees. The trees are the predominant issue. I mean, again, if I cleared out all those trees, 3/4 of an acre of trees in that back, it still wouldn't solve my problem because I only have 100 feet to the neighbor's yard. And they also have tall trees blocking solar access. So when, as Garrett's showing, so when the solar companies, including Earthlight and so on, looked at it, it's like, it's not gonna work, even with clearing the trees, you know, it's not gonna work. Your azimuth, i.e. the east-west orientation, it just doesn't catch the array of the sun access with the proper angles and so forth to deliver good energy.
And just to confirm, you did start construction of the geothermal today, is that accurate?
Yeah, they just started on the well. First well, they got down 270 feet. And, yeah, finally hit ledge at 150.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yep.
Commissioner Brady.
Yeah, I do have a question. So you said that you need 27 kilowatts to,
Yeah,
Power your
27
house?
kilowatt hours,
yeah,
as I've been told.
that
yeah.
seems like a lot.
Well, the geothermal takes about 10. The hybrid hot water heater takes about 2 to 3.
Right.
My usage is around 9, 10. The allowance for electric vehicles is about 6.5. When you add them up, that's actually more than the 27.
Okay, so your usage, so you have electric vehicles then?
No, but they're allowing for installing them, putting them in.
Okay, is that your plan?
It is if I get solar,
Right,
then at least it would make sense to have electric vehicles. Hopefully, and I mean, the prices are coming down, it's fantastic, the reliability is improving a bit. And I'd like to get to the point where they actually move to solid state batteries instead of our current lithium.
So just for clarity, the array in the front yard will be how many kilowatts?
35 initially would produce 15 to 17 kilowatt hours. The additional 15, so when I run my geothermal system for a year and I run my hybrid hot water heater system, that should put me over the 27 or around the 27 to go back to Eversource and justify the addition of the 15 panels. If I can't justify it, I can't have it. But right now, these are estimates done by, not by me, I'm relying on the expertise of the company I've hired, who deal with Eversource all the time.
I'm just trying to think about the size of the array and how that affects your neighbors and everybody else and whether you're overshooting. That's my question.
I can only go to,
What they're saying to you.
yeah, and I go to what Eversource would accept.
Thank you.
Mr. Wolf?
I don't have any questions at this time, but I do feel your pain because I've had a brownie go into my house and burn out appliances from Eversource.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And
And they won't cover anything, so.
well, initially, I was lucky the first time. She said, okay, put a list together and, we'll cover it. But then you have to sign something saying you're not coming back. And unfortunately, with the shorting, my oven went after about 4 weeks, because the transformer got weakened and the board and when I had repair guys come in, it's like, wow,
They told me, so.
do you have the old wire too?
I have an open neutral in power line, showing brown.
Okay. I have the old wire.
I need to get off track.
Yep, all right. But for 5 years, I've been trying to go to the new triplex so that it would be better insulated. Because currently, my 3 wires, they, way back when, used to be insulated, but most of the insulation is gone now. So with the winds, and they use these wire spreaders, and unfortunately with heavy winds or trees, collapses them, and it's like, there's only so much I can do. You go, their view is, well, I probably shouldn't say because a representative isn't here to back up their claim, but I assume if it's working, until it's broke, then.
Mr. DeSanfora?
Yes, just one point of clarification. When you were speaking about the taking out even 75% of the trees in the back would not meet your needs. Were you talking about the backyard itself?
Yes, taking
Right.
the trees on the south side. Because, go ahead.
So you also, and that means for the roof mounting as well?
Yeah, right,
Either, okay, the backyard or the roof?
right.
Okay.
So, I mean, if I put it next to the house, it's really bad because of the trees that are 100 feet away. But put it on the roof, I'm still faced with the trees. Even if I removed 100 feet of trees,
Right,
100 feet isn't that long, but, you still get blockage.
okay,
And that was assessed by Earthline.
great, thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. For the record, I went through all of the materials, but just for the record, tell us the physical size of this array. How many feet, how tall is it going to be? I understand that because it's angled, it will be higher in the back than in the front. but there's still a height in the back, so.
Right, I think your regulations are 15 feet is maximum. And the height of this proposal is 11 feet, 4 inches. And the width is for the full 50 would be 62 for plot and change. The 35 would be 40 something feet.
So how many square feet total?
15.5 times 62.3.
Hold on one second, Mr. Chair, I can do this.
Please.
I can't do that.
Not mentally, you can. For cleanness, I just did the rounded numbers of 62 by 11, that's 682 square feet. So the total length of the panels is 11.4, and the total proposed width is 62. As
Total height is.
yeah, and the total height is 11.4. As Mr. Yao stated, the application documents show the array in 2 different colors. The orange being the proposed array and the blue being the additional 15 panels. The request is for the whole size, with the understanding that if approved, only the orange would be installed now, and then if a year later they're needed, the others would be installed for the total 62.
Up to 15 more.
Yes.
If my use is less, then it would be less.
Yeah.
But currently, 15 to 35 panels, 5 by 7, would be accepted by Eversource.
So that I understand your answer there. At the moment, you are only seeking to install 35 panels, correct?
Correct.
And that would be, I think,
Because that's what Eversource would accept for sizing. So I'm working within the constraints, because initially we were looking to do this back in May and June, and we were going the fall, and then the people that deal with Eversource to get approval for the net metering and everything said they have kind of restricted their rules, and basically for existing homes, they're gonna rely on your actual use. Then it makes sense in a steady state. I mean, if I've been living in the house forever, I have a certain amount of usage, use that. But now, I'm actually changing over, so I'm not in a steady state. I'm actually changing over my heating and cooling system to geothermal. I'm changing my oil-fired hot water heater to a hybrid hot water heater system. None of that power draw is reflected in my actual, and won't be until about a year.
so in other words, if you were to say that you were only going to put in the 35 panels, you're saying that what Eversource is allowing doesn't take into consideration your geothermal,
Correct.
because you have to give them a year of past electric bills, right?
And I can understand where they're coming from. You know, they want to make sure you're not putting in so much, building a solar farm, and then they have to give all these credits. So the fact that the expectation is they'll accept the production that we're proposing to start out with is good. I mean, these are people who deal with Eversource on a consistent basis. And this is what their conclusion is that would be accepted.
So in other words, you're asking for the amount you would hope to put in after Eversource sees that your energy needs have gone up, rather than come back next year
Right.
for the additional 15 panels. That's
Correct.
the point you're making.
That is, sorry, I wasn't clear, but yes, basically, the assessment is the geothermal is gonna consume roughly 10 kilowatt of energy, kilowatt hours of energy. The hot water heater is another 2 to 3. So that's gonna add to my needs once it's running then I'll be able to justify as an existing homeowner the additional panels. And it's different for new construction, because initially the thinking was, okay, get an engineer's.
Well, this is not new,
I know,
right? So
right.
I'm getting
Okay.
off track. My next question is, since we're dealing with net metering, right? So if you
Right.
produce more, it goes back to Eversource, right?
It does.
So the question is the fact that you're telling us you have these really poor frayed wires, is that calculated in so you need a larger array because you have poor transmission lines?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'm not an expert at that, because it would be figured in there if, when I lose power, then obviously I'm not drawing on it. But it's, when I, for example, experienced the short and stuff, it's not like it was out for an extended period of time. It was just this popping. And it's like, what's going on? And then it's like, wow, you get the smell.
I understand.
And
All right, so you said that you have approval go ahead from your neighbor to the south at 113 town, right? What about your neighbor to the north at 117?
the neighbor to the north, to 117,
They're here?
I think has an issue, so
All right, they'll be speaking.
yes.
Okay, fair enough. That's all the questions I have, but I'm wondering if the town staff has any comments particular to this application. And then I know that Commissioner Chepsky has addition.
Yeah, you answered
Oh, I did?
my question.
Mr. Chairman, the only two things staff wanted to bring up at this time was the additional panels, which we had just discussed. And then the other point of clarification that I put into your review but wanted to point out during the meeting is that the layout that was proposed by the solar company that shows the property lines does not reflect the actual property lines. The line is full from the panel, geographic information, which when you share the first applying for solar, we found out the property lines were wrong. So I did apply the survey that was done when Mr. Young acquired the back parcel of 113, which is that property to the south. And then I did provide two maps, one showing the allowed area for ground mounted solar array per our regulations, and an aerial photo showing that as well.
So to be clear too, the original GIS strip is still relevant. It's not like that was incorrect. We're just missing that piece over 113, which I acquired later, which when I was talking about the trees and the removal, it was on that property on the side.
So in other words, at some point, you or your family acquired the rear half of the 113 Town Farm rectangle.
I did.
But that doesn't affect the location where you're putting the array.
Right, and it was considered in terms of the hardship, in the sense that if I could put it on the side, because I now have 100 feet of width plus, I forget the distance, more that maybe an array could be put there, but it's faced with tall trees again, even if I removed the trees up to the neighbors.
Thank you. So I don't have any other questions. Did you, Garrett, did you have any other points you wanted to make or no?
No, we did receive some correspondence, so right when we opened the public hearing, I'll just go over.
Well, let me find out if any
Right.
of the commissioners, including those online, have any other questions that they wish to propound at this point. Commissioner Brady.
Thank you. So I'm having a hard time a little bit with the math on what your needs are. So once you have the efficient hot water heater and your geothermal going, I understand that they do draw some energy, but aren't they also saving you energy from what you're using presently? And so your numbers,
Because, sorry to interrupt, go ahead and finish. Correct,
this is just oil, no electric. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
and that's why I said it's not reflected
right,
in my actual usage, because I'm using oil.
okay.
And so now when I switch over and change over to electric, I don't have a history on it, they won't allow reflection of it. In new construction, yes, with an engineer's
I
report.
see. Okay, thank you.
So I'm working within those constraints.
Anyone else? Online, any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Next, I would, I guess, Garrett, you said we have some correspondence that you want to, just
Yes.
on the record.
If you give me 1 second to get down to the bottom. All right. So, I received an email in support from the property owner of 118 Town Farm Road, a letter in support from 116 Town Farm Road, a letter in opposition from the resident and property owners of 115 Town Farm Road.
That 115,
I'm sorry, 115 Town Farm Road.
that would be me. I support it.
Yes, I'm sorry, 114 Town Farm Road. I was looking at the wrong, across the street. And a letter in support from the neighbors at 113 Town Farm Road, which is the property directly to the south.
Right, so there's 3 letters from across Town Farm Road on the other side of the street, and 1 from the direct neighbor to the south?
Correct.
Okay. Is there anyone here wishing to speak in favor of the applicant? Hearing none. Are there any people, by the way, who are appearing remotely as just members of the public?
There is no one logged in.
Online. Is there anyone present who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? All right, who is here first?
I'm not really in.
Okay,
You'll
well,
have to go to the
if
microphone.
you can't hear, nothing can be recorded unless you come up either, I don't know if these microphones work, but maybe the podium would be better.
Yeah.
And if you would identify yourself and your address for the record.
My name is Donna Bailey and I live at 14 Salisbury Way in Devonwood. So his property backs up to us, basically. So my question, I don't really oppose the whole project, but he should have a strip of land behind his property that is restricted by the town of Farmington. And he cannot cut the trees back there. So I was just kind of concerned with where are all the trees being cut from so that he would avoid cutting what's on his side, because I can't cut what's on my side.
Well, I think if you look at the map, there's a right of way that's between, I guess, I don't know which property it is, it's on Salisbury Way, but there's a strip of land owned, I don't know if it's town owned or.
It's owned by the,
HOA.
Yeah.
It's owned by the HOA?
It was part of the.
No.
No, ladies and gentlemen.
It's the historic canal,
Yes, sir.
okay?
The parcel of land between the homes in Devonwood and the homes on Town Farm Road is owned by the Devonwood HOA, and it's the historic Farmington Canal.
So nothing can be developed there anyway.
you can't cut any of the trees, you can't plant on it, you can't do anything with it. It's just there. And that would be my concern, that when he talks about cutting trees, what he's cutting.
So in other words, I just want to get some clarification. You would be opposed to him putting it in his rear yard because that would be closer to your property?
I would be opposed to that, but that seems to not be the question here. My question was more about my property being cut down because of his property being cut down. You know, that would be something I wouldn't want to deal with.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of the resident? No? All right. And is there anyone else who wishes to speak speak in opposition or in favor?
I'm David Blake, abutting property to Mr. Gow,
At what address, please?
117.
Okay.
can't speak for the person. You had a letter up there for someone who was opposed. Did we see those letters?
114,
Yeah, hold on.
the owner remaining.
Yeah, so, and just for the record, Mr. Chairman, the property owners are in Maine. They rent the house and they spoke with the tenant when she dropped the letter off. And it's signed by both the property owners and the tenant of 114 Town Park.
And there's more.
Right, we have that.
There's other letters. Can I see that?
You need to speak into the microphone.
Can I see the other letters, all the letters?
Again, for the record, this is a letter in support from the owner of 118 Town Farm Road. Letter in support from the owners of 116 Town Farm Road. Again, my letter in opposition to at 114 Town Farm Road.
There.
And the letter in support from the neighbors at 113 Town Farm Road.
That letter, I'm surprised, as I did speak to Mr. Hatter about this array of panels that are gonna be right next to his house. Probably within his deck, 50 feet. He clearly did not want this to happen. And how he would write this letter.
I'm going to have to interrupt. I don't think you, for our purposes, criticizing
Correct.
someone else's position. We're going to ask you
Correct.
to tell us your position.
My position is that the array is not as close to his house as it is to mine. But it does definitely impact any value of my property or anyone else's that has to live next to this. If I were to sell my property, people are gonna look at this 65-foot, 11-foot high giant panels sitting in the middle of the field. It's hard to believe that this is even possible to be happening, but Mr. Yao has problems with his power. Well, I don't know why you can't hire a private electrician to run wire from your home to the street. People do that generally. If there's a problem, you have an electrician, you don't have to run wire, it's gonna cost a lot of money. Well, it's not gonna cost millions of dollars or anything, it's just the poles are up. You run the wire, larger size, to his panel. So I don't see how there's a difficulty in having that done. My neighbor across the field has told me he's had his power go out on him based on this wire. He's confused as to why it doesn't get addressed. To date, Mr. Yao has done nothing. If he assumes that he cannot do anything, perhaps he should look to a private individual company to do this work. That's one thing. The 3/4 of an acre next to his house that he owns, I understand he probably doesn't want to have to cut all that down. But in my opinion, if he wants this giant panel sitting in this field next between these houses, that should be his responsibility to do that rather than have us lose property value based on his perceived needs for the future. Everything is good for him. It's not so good for the others. There's just the looks of this is going to be, I can't imagine. He does have a propane cylinder tank, 2,000 to 5,000. He was telling me, I saw it. It's gigantic. You could run a generator. You could run your house in that. You could get off oil right now. You could be connected to propane by propane appliances for your generator, for your heating, whatever. So he has other means. I'm just amazed that all this is really happening. I have lived in and out of that house. I was born there. And I've had my issues with Mr. Yao for property encroachment. I did have a surveyor come in Saturday and he verified there was encroachment on my property, which needs to be addressed. I guess town won't help in that matter, but I'll have to find what we can come up with an agreement. So it was all based on his need for power. He can have an electrician run power. That would seem to be the easiest point. And the property next to the thing, she was concerned about the acreage and the piece of property that's right here, next to his house. He owned that. Well, it's going to cost somebody to take down. Maybe the lawyer would say, well, you got some good oaks in here, you got something valuable, I don't know. Granted, he's going to have to pay. But if you clear a good part of the lot, and if he's going to elevate this thing 15 feet in the air, whatever it is, how about he elevates a larger panel and put it above some of the trees that are lighting? But they're up higher. I don't know if that can be done. I'm in opposition in every way, and I can't imagine anybody driving on the street that just happens to glance past my house, because you can see right up to his house. His driveway goes up 600 and something feet, and part of it's on my property. So I really don't have any more to say. I can't speak for the neighbor who I spoke to that seems to have provided a letter of support, which that's his business. But I am not in support. I find this difficult to understand. My father built a house in 1948, 49, one of the first families in the area. We've always maintained our property well. And a lot of things have come and gone over the years. And it's just sort of like a capper of this gigantic thing next to my house. I want to kidding. But it's good for him. So, thank you.
Sure, there might be questions, so let me start with online. Commissioner Callahan, do you have any questions? Or Commissioner Super?
I do not have questions at the moment. I do, however, note that one of the letters that came in support of the application is from Ron and Sheila Llewellyn. And of course, I'm sure this applies to several of us. Ron and I have run for office together. We do business together. I consider him a friend. I don't believe that I would give his comments any undue weight, but I note the connection for the record.
Thank you. Commissioner Subramanian, do you have any questions?
Not at the time. Thank you.
All right, then I'm going to go through the room. Commissioner Cloud.
Good evening, sir. How are you? Good, good. You mentioned in your last, this is on your property. What do you
No, it's not on
my property. You didn't say that.
I have a dispute that, as I learned as of Saturday, with Mr. Yao on encroachment of his driveway and 3 or 4 feet of my property. He's sort of absorbed it. It's in the woods. It's not something noticeable. It's on the side. Looking at it, the properties are almost 700 feet long. If you put a pin in the front, you put a pin in the back. So somewhere in the middle to gauge where exactly how far over, where can you plant a tree? I don't want to put it on his property, whatever. Something like that. So it's hard to gauge. It's not, so that's my concern. With the array is going to be in the field next to it. So every day it's like, here it is.
Right, that gets to my next question, which is there any level of compromise that you would be open to considering?
No.
If he had a bigger fence, if he had arborvitae, if he was able to, make it so that it
Surrounded by trees, do that. Oh, yeah.
defeats the purpose, doesn't it?
Yeah. Sure, except that he has the ability, 3/4 of an acre next to his house, that if he spent the money to tear them down and maybe elevate the panels or do something, then his roof area will also be exposed better. It's not like that's the only place it can go. I mean, in his opinion, and in the electrical contractor that he's hired, his solar company, but maybe he, meantime, how about have your electrical line fixed so it helps your other neighbor as well, because he's complaining about it, and have, look into how much it costs the other trees cut down, see where it is. Look it out. See, it was like, this is sort of popped out of it, but all of a sudden, we got this giant, it's not even like the smaller, what's on the roof, it's big trees on the roof. There, it's only this, right next to my house, right next to the other guy, like, literally gonna shine into the thing. I can't imagine.
Commissioner Brady, then.
So, just for clarity as to where you live, you're to the north of the property? Okay. So, to Commissioner Cloud's question, if trees were planted behind the array, blocking the view of the array, would that be something that you would feel would be advantageous to you or help with the situation? Because they wouldn't then shade the array, which would be counterproductive, and they would act as a block.
So, that's my house here,
Okay.
that's my shed. The array will be right in front.
Mhm.
There's an area here, if you cut down these trees that private is his house, I'll put up there. I wouldn't like it there either, but it'd be better than down here.
You need to talk to the microphone.
So I'm not here to point out as I speak.
Yeah, I know, but it's just difficult.
Okay, so cut those trees, it gives him a nice privacy. Cut those down.
So, I mean, there's more reason for trees than just privacy, but for you to block the view of the array that you would be putting in, would a stand of trees?
It'd have to be very tall trees. I mean, if you plan on as a sapling or something,
Sure.
about 15 years, it
Right, yeah, I
might be
agree.
pretty good.
I hear you.
Probably dead, but I'm 70 years old now. That's why I say I've been there my whole life, more or less, on and off. And it's like,
What about a fence?
galvanized fence, black fence, whatever.
Mr. Young, hold on until we're done with this part, and then you'll be able to rebuttal.
Sorry about
Do you have other questions?
No, I was just wondering if there was a way to shield it, then you wouldn't see it. And I think it's possible,
For
but
me, I could probably do something, and then in 10 or 15 years, it's like, or 10, it's like, I can barely see it now from here, it was like that. This guy, he never changed it. His house is
If I could clarify what Commissioner Brady Benson is asking, if we could require that if this were to be approved, that the applicant plant trees, and we could require that they be mature trees that have started 10 or 11 feet. So I think the question was, is there any, or a taller fence, is there any kind of blocking or screening
Mhm.
that would, in your mind, somewhat placate your concerns?
I don't, it's a reasonable question. It's also not answering, my surrounding neighbors, nobody wants to get into a battle over this sort of thing. It's a difficult position. It puts us in a difficult position. These people that have written letters in support, okay, I don't know if I necessarily agree that they're just trying to get along, and it's not right next to their house. So,
But I think the question is directed to you. Let's not talk about the neighbors. They didn't
Yeah.
ask for anything. Okay?
Well, if they can do trees that can go on the backside and then come around here, so I don't have to see it. Well, now they've blocked the sun because they'd be starting to grow and blocking and shading the trees. So I don't know
Well,
how that would work.
I think that it's possible that they could position them in a way that wouldn't do that. I mean, depending on how, I mean, the array is gonna try to be as south-facing as possible. I mean, that's the goal,
Probably what?
as south-facing as possible to get the most exposure to sun. So
Yeah.
based on where you're located and how much land is between where the array would be and your property line, there seems to be enough room to be able to do something that could be at an angle. I don't know, I'm just looking at a photograph, you know, aerial photograph at this point, but.
You are correct. There's a way to do things to make this, to go ahead with this project and benefit him. What about my property value? What happens with that? It goes down, anybody sees this is not gonna be too happy. They're gonna be like, oh my God. So if I wanna sell my house, or you're gonna evaluate, I mean, does that enhance my property value or bring it down? Would it be less? It's like, well, it's likely. I mean, it's a big array. It's not something small, it's very large. And I feel that there's options for him to get the electrical light changed. You can call a contractor, but power on your house. Do that tomorrow. He's got propane. He can run up that. And I understand all this off the grid stuff, but that's wonderful for the other room. We just have 3/4 of an acre right next to this house. Why can't we figure something out there? I mean, I understand it. I mean, how many thousands of dollars to pay to have these trees cut down? Well, how much you're paying now, I don't know. Is it free to get these solar panels for free? I don't know. It just seems sort of free.
Commissioner Jensky, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Wall?
No.
Commissioner DeSantora?
No questions.
I just want to go back to Commissioner Grady Benson's question. So if we were to approve this array with conditions, what kind of condition? I understand you're saying there may be other places where they're cutting down trees might be an option, but we're talking about if we were to approve it, what conditions would you want to, whether you agree, you don't have to ever say you're fine with it, but what would you want us to require if it were to be approved? How about arborvitae, a whole line of them that completely blocks the backside of the array, for example?
Well, my view of my house is this house back here. The array, the panels are shown, the panels are there. So, you know, when I step out, I see it. If you're in your front yard, you're not gonna arborvitae, can't only plant there. They trim them so that, well, the sun hits it right, the right time.
Can you do that? I guess. Do I agree to it? Do I like any of this? No.
And as I understand it, the array is going to be where closer to your shed. In other words, it's not by your house, it's by the shed. Am I correct?
Right, it's in that area. It's from the shed area going up towards his property.
Okay.
Right, that's
All right, and I see right now it's an open grassy area, correct?
Correct.
Between your house and yours.
Yes.
So a line of trees, even on an angle, would, from at least your yard, maybe not from your second story, from your yard, would block or obscure that array. Am I correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody has any other questions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak either in favor or in opposition to this application? Hearing none, I'm going to call the hearing closed.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before you close the public hearing, a rebuttal from the applicant.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. You wish to respond to any of the comments that were made?
I'll be brief. I'm sorry, Dave, if it upsets you and everything. I hope we can find something that won't make it look so bad and try and block the view of it. I do know, and again, when I tried to position it back instead of the optimal location is actually next to your house. And your house abutting that property on that side is a garage. And I do know that where the array location, and I do have pictures taking it from the array to your house where you know, the windows are, and also your backyard before it slopes down. You can't see the array. You won't be able to see it. Right, and we do have evergreens that are more than 12 feet high, still blocking the view to the house.
Mr. Yao, if we were to require some kind of plantings, would you be amenable to that at your expense?
Absolutely, I don't want them to be upset. I agree, you know, solar is kind of a touchy subject. People have strong feelings on both sides.
So you're
I don't
saying-
wanna-
okay, so you're saying yes, you would?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions by?
Yeah. Now, you know, we've had a number of these applications over the last year or two. And, you know, one of the creative solutions that we saw on the top of the Mountain Spring application, Gary, you may remember that one, was that they created a bit of a berm. And I live on Mountain Spring, so I see the top part of it, I drive by it every day. They created a bit of a berm with some trees. So that further obscured the view for the neighbors and really from the street as well. You have to look really hard to see it. So in Chairman Schoenholm's comments, I mean, you would be open to something that was creative to help, you know, bring down the concerns that your neighbor has about.
Absolutely, I'd like to alleviate his concerns and, you know, he doesn't want to look at it. I get it. You know, and the array is actually angled away from his house. But putting in a berm, I wouldn't say that we need to go this whole length of the property line.
No, of course.
Because quite honestly, we do have evergreen trees that we planted that are very tall and, nope,
There, keep going.
okay.
Sorry, take
Well-
a second.
Yeah, okay. Right in there, you know, you could see those trees aren't small along the property line. And the top of the array is gonna be much lower, about half of where those trees' height is, if that. And again, I went and took a picture to see from the array through the evergreens and his house. You can't see his house. And this is why I tried to locate it back farther, because I didn't want to put it next to your house, which was just a little bit back, which was actually the optimal location. So I moved it back to try and get close to the halfway line, which was kind of the demarcation of good and bad. And then position it so a lot of the view from 117 is obscured.
Mr. Yao, I want to get back to what the question I was just asked. Are you willing, if
Yes.
to include a partial berm upon which plantings such as arborvitae are planted, so that if you go, for example, I think a block up from your, block down from your house is where Country Club Road is, right? And you know they put a berm up on that first house at the corner of Town Farm Road and Country Club Road. There's like a berm with a bunch of plantings on it, if you know what I'm talking about. Just down from your property.
Okay,
A lot, not even.
sure.
You know what I'm talking about, Country Club Road?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so if you've ever noticed, that's what they built there to act as a sort of a, I don't know.
Oh, at that house at the corner?
Yes.
Yes, I know where that is.
So the question is, would you be willing
Sure.
to do that if that we were to make that a requirement? So it would actually be in the permit, that would be something we would have to do.
I mean, there's a reason, I mean, how high do you want the berm? I mean,
Well, I think the way it would be worded, assuming, we haven't gotten that motion yet, but if we were to get that far, it would be to work with staff to come up with the proper planning staff, to go with the proper planning, the proper berm. That's all I can say with that.
yeah, I think that's fair.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, so now we're going to close the hearing, and I will entertain a motion regarding this application.
And just a reminder for all commission members, motions are made in the affirmative, and the way in which you phrase your motion does not require you to vote that way either. It's just the motion is being affirmative for legal, logical reasons.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to get Mike going and we'll see how, if I can get this right. But, my motion would be to approve this request with the caveat that the applicant, Mr. Yao, work with staff to identify the appropriate berm/arborvitae to diminish the ability to see the array from his neighbor's property.
Before we get a second, would you clarify when you say berm/arborvitae, berm and plantings such as arborvitae?
The combination of a berm and arborvitae to provide proper obscurity.
Is there a second?
For 117, correct?
Yeah, you normally, just, right. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right, discussion. I'm going to go in, again, in order. We'll start with Commissioner Callahan.
I do not have any questions, and I must acknowledge for the record, it's been very difficult to hear because of the technical issues.
We're asking whether you want to comment on the, how you want to vote on this application.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Do you want to comment on the motion itself, on whether you, what your position may be? Do you want to comment?
My inclination is to favor the application, and I will also listen to the comments of my fellow commissioners on that point.
Commissioner Cloud.
Well, I think compromise is always important in situations like this. As I said, we've had a number of these. They can sometimes be contentious. I understand the interest in wanting to go green, and many people support that. There are supporters and detractors of that issue. And I think we have to be very careful to look at two things, right? What is the hardship? And also if there is some level of compromise, if there is disagreement around the situation. I think we've struck that, and if we can vote affirmatively, I will be voting in the affirmative myself as a support.
Commissioner Brady Benson.
I would agree with Commissioner Cloud. However, the size of the array and giving approval for 50, if I'm correct, panels, right? As opposed to what has been actually approved by Eversource, or what Eversource would be allowing to happen. I would be more compelled to approve that size of an array as opposed to going for the potentiality of you having 50 panels.
Commissioner Kempsky.
I would align my comments with my fellow commissioner. I think the compromise is a good one to help ease the neighbors, but I do think the size of the project is quite large, and I don't like necessarily the idea of giving a blanket okay when only a certain amount has been approved to date, and then without an additional approval from the zoning board for additional panels, I think I would be more inclined to approve what the orange, if you look at that, whatever that square footage was, and then request that if additional panels are necessary, that the applicant come back at the appropriate date to add on additional panels.
Commissioner Wall?
I agree with my prior two commissioners. I would say to approve the original 35 and then at a later date, come back on the other 15.
I considered that too. I just want to point out my concern about that. And like I said, I made up my mind it would require a either a second vote or a amendment to the motion that's been made, at least under the rules, probably in order. But my concern is if we're going to require a buffer, if approved, which would include both a berm and arborvitae, it seems to me that the location of those screening materials would matter whether it's going to be 35 panels versus 50 panels. And if we, and it would seem to me that when you're working with staff, if it's only the 35 panels, where they go will matter. It won't act in the same way as screening if we then have to have them move the berm later on. So for that reason, it would seem to me that I think that's more problematic from a structural point of view and landscaping point of view, at least in my opinion, than by approving what has been requested. So I guess the first question then would be, in light of the comments, is there a proposed amendment to the motion that has been made that would require that the application only be approved for the 35 panels and not the 50? And if there is such a motion, would it be considered a friendly amendment or not?
So I think something probably procedurally a little bit more simple is if the motion was withdrawn, and then the second was withdrawn, and then a new motion.
Well, I think once the motion has been made and seconded, it has to be voted on unless there's an amendment.
And Mr. Chairman, it's technical information for the motion before Commissioner Cloud amends his motion. Staff would just request that the arborvitae be a generic evergreen, planted 6 foot on center, minimum 5 to 6 foot height at time of planting, which is basically it's not the small ones, it's the generally larger ones that you get at the garden center. And the reason for generic evergreen, it's one, that generally it's better to have a mix of spruces and kind of cedar and arborvitae as opposed to doing a monolithic hedgerow for this part. And that way, if there's no arborvitae available at the garden center, the holes there, and plants everything, plant could choose a different evergreen that still matches that 6 foot minimum height requirement.
Okay, so with those comments noted, you want to amend your motion and we want to vote on the amendment. Why don't we do that? Let's have a motion and a second and vote on whether the amendment should be made part of it. Let's do that.
So just for clarification, the amendment, we're voting on whether to add an amendment or we're voting on the amendment?
No, the motion, as I understand your amendment,
Yes.
is to amend the pending motion.
Correct.
To change the approval to 35 panels instead of 50, and based on comments, to alter the comment about arborvitae to be evergreen, that would, well, then I can work with staff to choose the particular evergreen. That's my understanding of the way we should do it. If we're going to amend, and then we vote on the amendment, and then vote on the final approval. I just want to clarify whether that's something, I mean, that's, all right, let's do it that way. So if there's a motion, are you making
I will move motion
to amend?
to amend the original motion by Commissioner Cloud to approve the solar array panels of 35 instead of the original larger panel with the notation of firm and arborvitae's for like working with staff to ensure that the height is appropriate.
Not, I think that question was evergreen.
Evergreen, I'm sorry. Evergreens instead of arborvitae.
Is there a second to that?
Can I ask a question though? Before you second it? There's that, no problem. So can the berm be big enough to fit the 50?
Position enough so that I could.
You just did build one berm.
We're not specifying as far as where the berm exactly is going. It's just that it would require a return that you wanted to add. Okay. 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 Okay, do a second.
I second the motion.
Okay. Is there discussion on the now amended motion? That's because we have to vote on that.
So the berm can be big enough to fit 50 panels when it's originally constructed, so the homeowners don't have to go back and with extra expense to expand the berm. That's what was my concern. As you made your point, I was thinking, wait a minute, we're now going to add added expense to the homeowner to expand the berm. So if you can just build it big enough, if the case becomes ever so proves to do nothing else.
Well, and my response to that is, we're not dictating where that's going. So that would be between town staff, maybe a landscaper, and a home.
Okay, all right, okay.
Is that how we understand that? I just want to make sure everybody gets.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to.
Okay, so based on that, what our current motion is, I'm going to ask for a roll call, please. I'm sorry. This is on the amendment.
Yes, the amendment to Commissioner Gemsky's amendment to Commissioner Cloud's motion. And I'll start with Commissioner Walsh. Sorry.
Aye.
Commissioner Gemsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Grady Benson.
Aye.
Commissioner Cloud.
Aye.
Commissioner Callahan.
Aye.
And Chairman Schoenhardt.
Aye.
Okay, so that was 6 ayes for the motion to amend Commissioner Cloud's original motion.
And now we will call the question on the motion with its amendment. Right, so unless there's further discussion on that, seeing none, I would ask that we call the roll.
All right, and this is a roll call vote for Commissioner Cloud's amended motion to approve. Commissioner Walsh.
Yes.
Commissioner Gemsky.
Yes.
Commissioner Grady Benson.
Aye.
Commissioner Cloud.
Aye.
Commissioner Callahan.
Aye.
And Chairman Schoenhardt.
Aye. So,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, that is 6 affirmative votes. The variance is approved for 35 panels.
So, we understand that we have to work with staff on the matter. It's just my personal view that I think you should maybe consult with your neighbor if it might be able to, help make proposals, but that's up to you at this point. So thank you, and good luck with your project. All right, I'm going to move on to the new business. The only thing on new business is we are approving the schedule for 2025 meetings. Has everyone reviewed that schedule that was sent out a week or so ago? Does there any discussion about that? Because I will ask for a motion and approval of that schedule. All right, so, could I have a motion then?
Motion to approve the schedule for 2025 meetings.
Is there a second? Second. I don't think we need a roll call. All in favor?
Um,
Aye.
All right, it's unanimous. I've signed the original, I think, Secretary Dembski must sign, and then the original will be turned over to staff. Moving along, it's been so long since we've had our last meeting, but I'll entertain a motion with regard to the minutes of the April 16, 2024 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. I will note there is one typo on the second page, the last paragraph, the one that begins with the commissioners. I think the next word is agreed with a D rather than S agrees. So with that change, can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the April 16th meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes of the April 16th meeting.
Second.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Just before we adjourn, I'm just going to quickly ask, are there any pending, anything coming in perhaps for next month?
I believe we'll have an application for a shed. That's all I've talked to anyone on.
All right.
An application, and it's a property that you've previously given variance for separately. So I'll have all that information for the original variance approval as well in the application and the agenda review.
Very good. So before I adjourn, anybody have anything they want to put on the record or no?
Just one question though, back to the meeting, are we on for 7, is that the time?
Yes.
Yes. Has it always been that?
Yes.
All right, 10.
Well, except Mr. Callahan, Commissioner Callahan, used to say, before I was on the committee, it started at 7:30, and I remember he showed up once at 7:30, thinking that's the
Yeah, I think-
time, so.
Yeah, a number of towns used to do 7:30, and because some meetings go very late, they've been bumped up to 7.
So I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Harry and Joy, wherever you are up in the mountains.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.